As I said to you, people have been suspended for having long hair and they've been suspended for having short hair. So they're conventions. Now those conventions have a life of their own because everyone in the community has agreed this is a good convention. Basically, we agree. So the parents want it, the students sort of have agreed to it, the staff have as a majority at least agreed to it. Now, once there is a convention, that does bind staff, by the way, in my opinion at least. If they want to be a member of that community, they should support the norms of the community. That's just logical. Even if I don't agree with those norms and I don't want to be a member of that community, they are saying they do, and therefore they need to support the norms. How you argue norms of a community is something I'm not sure about. I mean, there is a logic to the fact that everyone in this community has agreed on this, so there is a problem if you ignore the norms of this community. The problem is for you because people see you as antisocial. That's a problem. Now, I don't know if that's convincing or not. Doubt it. Especially when they know half the kids don't want to do it. So this is something I could take advice on. This is something, let's put that down for homework. I would like you to reflect on, we know how to deal with rights to safety and we know how to deal with rights to learning. How are you going to conduct a convincing discussion in people's adults if you're talking about norms? And let's get some conventions. Uniform is not a convention, by the way, I don't think, because the necessity for a uniform comes about because of emotional well-being. It stops comparisons between people, even though it allows for few. It's much less than if people wear civvies. It is a safety issue. It shows you who's in and who's out, so that's not a problem there. So you can argue uniforms. You can't as easily, let's say chewing gum would be one, or even drinking from a water bottle in a classroom. Some schools allow it, some schools don't. Wearing of a hat, some schools demand it, some schools don't have. Taking your caps off in a classroom, some schools demand it, some schools don't. So it's those there that, when you can find something that varies between schools, that's what I mean by conventions. So once you've got a set of conventions in your environment, in this model, let's say, how do you argue them? That's going to be my question to you. And maybe you can go back and talk to some people and think about it, because I need to deal with this. It's always been a problem for me. I've never known really what to say to people other than to say, well, you know, we've just agreed, like you did. Everyone's agreed, so we're sort of stuck with it, even if you don't like it. You want to be part of this community, you've got to abide by it. That's life. You want to be part of a community, you abide by its conventions. And there's a logic to that in an adult, but I don't know if it's strong enough. Maybe you can come up with something really, really clever, which would be great. Okay, I've got a couple more things just that I picked up in moving around that I have to say. One, this conversation is counterproductive for Ds. If you knew the kid was a D, you would not have this discussion. Be aware. The reason I say that is that some Ds do what they do in order that you will have this discussion. Okay, you will actually get to feel that after a while because they'll go through the motions, but nothing ever changes at all. Ever. Unless you change, of course. So you're spinning your wheels. So it's the same spinning the wheels argument. If you've been through this 3 or 4 times with a kid and you see no perceptible sort of changes, not even a little more guilty on the face when you say something in class, you realise you've been actually giving the junkie a fix, basically. You're strengthening their habit. That's the next one. I'm going to give you a line that you need, which I forgot to tell you. It's a great line. What about the other sort of stuff they say? Right? Here's a line which I should have given you almost verbatim. Look, I don't think you'd like me talking about you with anybody else, so I don't think it's fair to talk about them here. It's worth committing to memory, that line. It's been so useful. You know, because I'll say, what about the other? And you can say, look, I'll look into that. I hear you. You're saying you weren't the only one. The others are involved as well. I didn't see them, otherwise I would have responded. That's a confrontation. But I will try and pursue that. In the meantime, I don't think you would like me talking about you with them, so I really don't think it's fair to talk about them here. And it just shuts them down in 9 times out of 10. It's a very powerful line. That's one thing that came up. Yeah, I think I've covered my agenda from what I got from the parallel, the weighting. Yep, I got it all. Have you got anything left on this agenda for C's before next time we come back we're going to do D's? So your homework partly is to see. Actually, you know what would be good at homework as well? To listen to a couple of teachers do this. Not people here, just staff. Just go and listen to a teacher, have a conversation with a kid, and given this as a framework, see how far they are from this. And what you're listening for is what I heard in that primary school, which was, you did this, it was a bad thing because it had this impact. Next time, why did you do it? Fine. Next time that happens, I want you to do this instead. Do you agree? Yes. Okay. And then, of course, there was no ownership by the kid of any of that. So he didn't acknowledge it was a problem, really. Couldn't see it was. Didn't come up with a solution, has no commitment to it. So it was very convenient going through the motions, no impact. Maybe you'll see similar things, maybe you won't. Any other questions before we break?
Putting together classroom plans, yeah? And part of those classroom plans, we're talking about...
Where to go? Oh, you've got it? Yeah, Mike. Put it very close to your mouth if you could. Closer, closer, closer.
We talked about having...
hardly works.
You know, the kind of class expectations and the rewards and the consequences. Now, we've also talked about rules within the class. What do you think, how would those rules fit into a classroom plan?
Rules?
Yeah.
I don't. They can. I mean, it's not a big deal, but I personally asked me the question, so I have to answer it. I don't think rules fit into a class. I don't think rules should be in schools. Because rules, as I said to you, come from legitimate power base, and there is no need for them. I mean, maybe up to grade 3 there's a logic to it, but then you don't need them. Because the kids do what you want anyhow. But I would be uncomfortable recommending rules because rules are things you make for other people or other people make for you. It's not the same as acting responsibly. That's all. So that doesn't mean half the schools in the world don't have them. I mean, I've looked at 300 codes of behaviour and believe me, most of them have got rules. Even if they've got rights, they go from rights to rules. Which is why kids don't understand that it's their responsibility to do the right thing even when teachers aren't there to make them. This is my problem. Rules go with, it's your job to make us behave well. That's my feeling. That's how I think they understand them.
Can't rules be used to reinforce the responsibility?
Yes, rules and values can be used as an interim step if they're associated with responsibilities, yes, and rights. Absolutely, but it's just because that's what they're used to and that's what they expect in some. So you could use it for marketing. Good marketing, I'd imagine, have rules. And they would be a transition step until everyone understands that there are better things than rules. Any other observations you want to make or comments? We're just about there. So that leaves the D's. True? If you get a chance, as I said, to try this out and have someone evaluate you, that's one kind of homework. If you get to hear a person doing their own thing and evaluate them against these criteria, that would be a second kind of homework. I'd like you to come back with some reflection on reality with this framework, that's all. I'm on the email if you want to talk to me. Otherwise, I think we're done.